The entrepreneur, mom, deal maker, and the advocate. These are all exterior titles, but who am I when I peel the layers back? Unlayered with Chandra Cologne.
Welcome to episode number 2 of Unlayered with your hostess, Chandra Cologne. And today I have with me my brother, Drew Green.
Hello. Hey, we're happy to be here.
We're just going to keep rolling with this because I'm laughing because Drew is like my brother. And matter of fact, I think I may name this Candid Conversations with Uncle Drew.
Oh, yeah.
And I say that because you're like family of choice.
True.
So we're clearly not brother and sister.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like the family that you choose.
Of course.
And we call Drew, in my family, Uncle Drew. So I might just call it that.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
So originally, I called you and I said, hey, we have all of these dynamic conversations when I'm driving home late at night from my dinners or events, or you're driving home from one of your events, and we have all these phenomenal conversations about dating and what happened while we were out.
Meteor showers, whatever.
Yeah, we're up texting about the moon at 3 o'clock in the morning. We are consistently talking about business strategy.
Yes.
And so although I originally said, hey, we're going to talk about dating in your 40s because we just have so much content around this. But last night when I was thinking about creating my notes for this and following the strategic plan, I was like, I can't because there's so much content between you and I. We do business together. Drew and I met when we both served on a board together. And it was definitely a learning experience for both of us, but we clicked, we were like-minded. And at that time, if it's okay for me to say, you were starting the process of a divorce with your wife at the time.
Correct.
And at the same time, trying to grow your business. I was transitioning from one client to another client. And so there was a lot going on.
Right.
And let me just say, Drew is a business development professional and also a budding developer here in, I was going to say DFW, but it's inclusive of Texas. So DFW, Austin, you are really like sticking your tentacles into the development space. So I know with both of us, we're multi-dimensional and we do many different things. I'll say as business development professionals, we are out a lot. We meet people. It's our business to connect with people.
Yeah, it's our business to be out. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what happens is a lot of times people just assume you don't have any dating issues. You don't have any issues meeting people. You're out there. What do you mean you don't have this lineup of men or you don't have this lineup of women? When in actuality, when we're out, we're so business-minded and business-focused because for us, we're there and it's about business.
And I think, too, just the assumption of being a charismatic type person, people assume that that's being applied in a certain direction, in that direction constantly, when really it's like, for me, it's, you get that tunnel vision when you're out for business where even if I meet a attractive young lady in that scenario, I'm still kind of I'm there to make some money, to be honest. So it's kind of like, well, that's secondary, and maybe if it comes back around, whatever, and I rarely have time to follow up or make that second pass or whatever the case may be because I came there for a very specific reason.
Right.
So, and then as it happened last Sunday, time's up and you're gone, and you miss the opportunity, and you look up and like, well, damn, one more fish that I lost or whatever.
Okay, so put a pin in that because I want to circle back to that particular thing that happened last week. Yeah. So one of the things that I really just treasure or cherish about our relationship is that we have differences of opinions often.
True.
And one of the things and why I think our friendship is so dynamic and good is that even though we have differences of opinion on certain things, we never allow that to destroy our friendship.
No.
Because we know at the core who we are and that we're aligned there.
And it makes
that
it,
we can agree to disagree, and it grows both of us.
It grows, yes, and it makes your friendship deeper.
Yes.
Because, we can get as deep as we want to in our
Right.
respective perspectives,
Right,
but
right.
it doesn't really make, we don't lose any ground. We actually, me knowing more about you or you knowing more about me, it's kind of like, okay, when we disagree, like, okay, cool, and I know more about you and after that conversation, and
Right.
we kind of just, we can learn from each other even in that disagreement.
Right.
And just keep it moving, really.
Well, it just gives you, like to your point, another perspective. Like you weren't looking at it that way, and then you get off the phone and you go, okay, well maybe I can move off of my position if my position is super strong on something.
Right.
And we're listening to others. You go, okay, my position on that doesn't need to be as strong as it is, because I actually see how that other side, like there's truth there.
Or even if I remain as strong in that position, my acceptance of the opposing perspective
Great point.
is increased, because like, hey, I may like, Ethiopian food, which I do.
Right.
And if you hate it,
Right.
it's okay. But if we get to the end of the discussion, it's like, well, I know why you don't like it as much as I do. It's okay, cool. So we're still okay, you know?
Yeah.
Even though I'm still hardcore in my stance on Ethiopian food. I don't know why I use that. I think it's because I'm hungry, but
That makes two of us. Yeah. So I'll say for my single ladies out there, it is so important to have male friendships that are unconditional, that are supportive, that are healthy. As a single woman, Drew has been instrumental in just being a sounding board. Sometimes your biological family, they are your harshest critics because they love you so much and they want what's best for you. And sometimes you need that unbiased opinion from a friend that doesn't want anything from you. And I can honestly say, like with Drew, I don't have to worry about that. I know that he's got my back and there's no ulterior motive behind
Correct.
it. And I can bounce things off of him and feel like I'm going to get that objective advice or sometimes not even advice. Sometimes it's just someone that's willing to listen to you. Just being a listening ear.
I feel the same way.
And I've shared my non-dating woes with you. Mm-hmm. And I say that because people have this perception of, so you've got the outside perception of who we are, who people think that we are. And then we have who we really are, how we truly live, which is really the concept behind this podcast. Like the name of it being Unlayered, because we have all of these titles, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, and tell me if you agree, the perception of me in the business realm, when we talk about, being single and we're in a male-dominated industry together.
Correct.
And so you're privy to the conversations that have happened, surrounding me.
Right.
And the perception is that I must be dating a lot. Like they're like lined up outside of the house and I've sort of got my pick of the litter or whatever. There's that perception. Mm-hmm. And then of course there's a second one, which I loved what you shared with me a few weeks ago when you were in front of a friend and he was telling you what kind of woman that he wanted. Mm-hmm. And he's going down the list. I wanted to be this, and this.
Right.
And then you said, I know somebody like that.
True.
So now that you're single, you've been single for about a year.
Yeah.
It's been about a year.
Roughly.
I've been single for 5.
Right.
And so we're at opposite ends of the spectrum of where we're at, what we want to do. I'm trying to be, I say trying because I'm really not that great, but I'm making the effort of being intentional about dating.
Right.
Because one thing about dating in your 40s and up is that you're more established in your career. Your children are older. They're more established. My oldest is married. My youngest is in college. I'm an empty nester. I have more time on my hands and I'm more stable than I've ever been. And I've, done my work. Right? Or doing my work.
That's
it's
a
never.
Big one. That's a big one.
It's a journey for me. It's not
for
going
everybody.
to stop.
Yeah.
Yes. And I've been great at being intentional about getting myself together.
Right.
so that I can be the healthiest version of myself that I've actually ever been in my life, because I've taken the time to do so. But now I'm definitely at a place where I'm like, okay, I want to meet my person. And for
Right.
you, you're like, I told you a few weeks ago, you are intentionally like, you want to repel women. I have to tell you to get out of your, your Fraggle Rock t-shirt sometimes,
Yeah.
because you're not ready, which is great. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you shared with me when you're out and you're networking, your business, oftentimes that's at a bar or wherever.
Right.
You have been upfront and honest with women that you're not interested in, a deep relationship, right now, that, you're just.
What I've said is this. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
It took me so long to even get to the point to where I would even get out there at all.
Yeah.
Healing from what I've kind of come out of. Now that I'm out there, I'm totally fine with having conversations, being myself, being in the moment there.
Right.
But I know, because I've been on dates with people, since in the past, year and all that, and I realized that, okay, I don't have the gas in the tank to really invest in a relationship to the degree that she deserves. Like we go on a great date, she looks phenomenal, we have a great time, but then I may not even get that thing in my head to like, keep, progressing the whole thing or calling back or just checking in until like, the middle of the following week or like something like that. Like, oh, hey, I'm gonna call that lady back. And, that's not right, because if it was solid,
Right.
she deserves somebody who has that fire in them to like, I want to keep this going,
Right.
And while I am interested in the idea or in the person, they deserve more out of me. Like when I'm at my best, I am, as a man, like, we chase what we want.
Yes, you always remind me of that.
Yeah, men chase what they
Anytime I
want.
question,
That's it.
A guy, you'll say, Shan, men will chase what they want.
Period.
And it brings me back to
In
like,
every
okay,
situation.
that's
Right.
it. Yeah.
We're very direct. We know what we want to eat for lunch. We don't do the whole. That's why our struggles with you guys. Even my niece, who when she was 2, I'm like, hey baby, what do you want for lunch? She's like, oh, anything. Right. You start naming stuff, and it's always,
Yeah.
us just like, no, I want a sandwich, and I'm gonna go get it, like right now.
Yeah.
It's like my nephews, we're just like,
Yeah.
and it's the same. I feel like when you really are after a woman, you're after her. Mm-hmm. There's some initial game playing, of course. We all do that to kind of just see where the level of interest are, where are you. But really,
Right.
once you get past that part,
Right.
once we're like date 3 and rolling, I'm coming after your ass, It's like, okay, well, we doing this, I done spent all this money at the steakhouse, we doing this. So,
But what's been a trip to me is that you've been honest and upfront from the get-go. Once you can tell that they're kind of like feeling you, you make sure you let it be known. That way you're not leading them on.
Right.
They're not expecting the good morning text. They're not expecting the dinners. They're not. You're
like you can
upfront.
expect from me, like I am interested in you. But all that said is like, okay, if you have the patience to see where this goes long term and like see me through this period,
Right.
cool. But if you don't, that's cool too.
Right.
If I see you on another date tomorrow, that's fine. That's,
Because you're not ready.
Right.
You're not ready for even just the commitment to date. Because dating takes effort. It takes time, effort. There's a lot to it. And the thing that has been intriguing for me to find out is when you've been upfront and honest about your current season in life, their reaction, ladies, the reaction is like, you're a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like you're a douche. You're this. And it's like, what? Because for me, this goes back to what we say versus what we actually do.
Yeah.
Like for me, I can appreciate a man that's upfront and honest, and I'm not going to be led on. You're not going to waste my time.
Right.
Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Right? But when you do that, their response is, oh, that you just want to be a player.
Yeah, it's like, well, no.
You're not trying to be a player. You're saying,
This is
I'm
where I'm
not
at right
ready.
now. I'm coming out of this.
Not
I'm
because
here
I
right now.
want to talk to 20 girls
I asked you
and
out because
play
I'm
the fields.
interested in you.
Right.
But the pace of this, car is a little slower than
Maybe what you want.
Right. This is not a race car. We're going to go and just have the pace car drive a couple laps around the track first. And, I'm just, it's we're all healing from certain things and been through certain things in life.
Especially at this point in life.
Oh yeah, and and I know that intentionality, especially in your 40s, I would really love to have that, or have that be a hallmark of who I am as a person. Part of what I learned from being married, I started off and I just had a hard time of being 100% genuine with what I wanted and putting it out there, and also just you're always trying to give the other person what they want.
Yes.
When I really should have took a step back and been like, you know what? Here's where I am.
Right.
100%.
And here's what I want. Because what happens is, especially when you're married young, you're guessing. And a lot of times you're guessing incorrectly. You think that they need this. They need this over here.
And as a man, we're trying to put fires out too many times. It's like we only do something to put out a fire. Like, oh, she's mad. Well, she's mad about this. Fix that.
Crisis management.
That's it.
Yeah.
Can I go back to watching the game?
Right.
Whatever. And it's like, no, there's, farming analogies in the Bible. It's so amazing when you look at that, being a husband, being in a long-term relationship, being all that. It is like being a farmer, I asked to come and plant this tree. We are creating a plant.
Right.
And I'm the one who put the seed in the ground with asking you out. And how I water it and everything else, that's me. And my grandfather's he'd always be like, well, you can't get mad at the tree. You planted it, you did it. And he's right. I'm like, that makes total sense. I'm like, well, why are you mad at your tree? It was,
I like that.
You did this. You asked her out, you progressed this whole thing.
Right.
And if you're mad at the crop, it's hard. Once you have this big giant tree in your backyard and the fruit's garbage, you got to go and relook at everything that went into fertilizing it, how you watered it, all the stuff.
If you neglected it.
If you neglected it.
How about if you overwatered it? Oh.
And I went from being a neglector to being an over-fertilizing, over-watering farmer.
Yes.
And still getting nothing out of my crop. And then I was like, well, hell.
And okay, to our friendship, I there's been a few times where I've said, you're being an enabler. Mm-hmm. I mean, mad at you. You're being,
especially
do you know the definition of enabling?
Right.
Do you know, and because I could see what you couldn't see in that very moment.
Because with my wife's struggles, when I was really trying to fix it in the end and get us back on course, I overdid the efforts that I thought would be course-correcting mechanisms. And I wasn't trying to enable, but I really wanted it. This is our last round in the fight. I'm just going to go out swinging, and it's like, man. But you're right.
Maybe a corny reference, but Dr. Phil used to always say, you got to earn your way out. And the one thing that I really felt like you did is you went out swinging. Mm-hmm. You earned your way out. You did more than I think I've ever seen anyone as far as grace. Mm-hmm. Bro.
I know. I was in the Grace Hall of Fame. The
Grace
gold medalist in the Grace Olympics.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I was frustrated, but you taught me a lot of things in that.
If that's what if I wanted to fix this tree, I got to go and get through some bad crops I felt.
Right.
And it's well, maybe there's another thing I can kind of do to kind of just, because there'd be some positives I'd see in the course of that whole process.
Of course, because no one is just 100% bad.
Right.
But we want to hang on to that.
And I had to undo,
because
I was like, well, okay, some of the stuff was as a result of things I did early in our marriage.
Yeah.
Her insecurities that came from that, where I didn't properly address it then.
Right.
Some of it was fights we had when I was frustrated later on, when I was frustrated with her, that I said something that was, so I was like, well, maybe I'm going to undo things that I felt that I was a cause of. And I was giving her too much grace in that. No, still, she was doing crap too. Right. And then I reacted to that crap.
Yes.
And so it's well.
Because it's cause and effect.
It's cause, everything, cause and effect. And so that pendulum keeps swinging both ways. And it, just like it took two people to get there, it takes two people to get out.
Do you think that you stayed longer because of the disappointment of knowing that your parents had provided this picture perfect outline in marriage. And when I say perfect, meaning ups and downs, survived the ups and downs, went the course.
Yeah.
Your mother passed away. Your father was clearly by her side. Your father is a remarkable man. Was he the first African American pilot?
No, he wasn't the first one, but there wasn't many. But he, being a pilot, when he came up in those days, it was very hard. Like, he went through a lot to get where he was, and so he was friends with Tuskegee Airmen and all kind of stuff. So, just his route, his road, he was one of a very super small group of black pilots, black captains at that, who were not just co-pilots, but captains. So,
and you've often referenced your mother as a dragon.
Yeah.
But I love what you said earlier, because I think what a lot of people don't understand in relationships, marriages, or just long-term relationships, rarely are you ever on the same page at the same time.
No.
It's not a 50-50 thing.
Right.
It is sometimes, you're here in your career, but your spouse is down here, vice versa. You're there to help one another out.
Or in your emotions, or in your body image, or all the stuff. We're never equal.
We're evolving.
Yeah.
So.
And women faster than men, because I think I talk to my younger friends, it's look, you get a new woman every 3 years. This is the truth. We are the same dog for the most of our life, Whatever we are at 3, we're kind of the same at 30.
Don't tell us that.
But it's key for a woman to understand, look.
Fundamentally, yes.
Fundamentally,
yes. Fundamentally,
we can move and change,
right.
but as far as our temperament and all things like that, it's kind of in stone.
Right.
We can make minor course corrections, but we're kind of the same thing. And women have to be good about accepting when you see these things okay, well, this is just what Drew is.
Right.
Now, when it comes to treatment of the other, your partner or anything like that, you could always work on those things. Communication, but.
Okay, so hold on, I got to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Because you said, this is how Drew is.
Right. And I was getting into that, personality-wise.
Because sometimes people will say that as an excuse to carry on with bad behavior.
And no, behavior can always be corrected. But as far as me, I like to sleep.
Yes.
So when there's nothing to do or whatever else, I have no children, Saturday morning normally, I'm just gonna sleep.
Right.
And that's just I recharge. So if you like somebody who gets up early all the time and is up and at 'em at 6 a.m, I'm not your guy.
Right. And that's what
that's
what you're saying. Hey, for the most part, this is my routine. This is who I am.
I can change it. I'm not going to be comfortable in that. I can make the change, within reason. But
right. A compromise.
I know. I will compromise, but still, just in that compromise, I would much rather, be doing this over here.
Yeah.
But I'm doing this for you, so I got up at 8 on a Saturday because I love you.
Right.
So put that in the bank.
File that in the cabinet.
Okay. Right. When I come to make a withdrawal, just understand. So
let's talk about religion and spirituality. So I will say that, and I hate to even put them in these categories because I just think it's way more expansive than this, but I would say you are probably a little bit more on the traditional religious side of things. Just for a second, stay with me.
Go on.
I'm probably a little bit more on the liberal side, but I don't even like that term. That's what I'm saying. For the sake of the conversation, because I'm gonna lead into this, meaning you stick more to the traditional definition of marriage.
Oh,
the biblical traditional sense of marriage.
Yeah.
For me.
Okay.
And I have.
I was are we going to do the other thing, or we can do the other thing if you want?
What's the other thing?
You talk about where we stand.
Which thing?
The lead-in was religion and versus spirituality, and I'm like, oh, well, because there is a thing there too. But yes, I do believe in and go after and seek the traditional
That
marriage.
box.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm more at a place in my life where I feel like that's not a requirement for me, like the traditional marriage box. However,
contract.
The contract.
Yeah.
I desire a partnership that is exclusive without the traditional contractual, political, government way the thing has been spun. And we've had some deep conversations about this because I feel like,
and I think it's based upon your experience with it. I feel that.
so definitely
It colors our
there's experience.
perspective. Yeah.
It colors our perspective. I like the way you put that. And I think I've just realized that people come into our lives for so many different reasons. I mean, I don't even believe that everyone just has one soulmate. That's
No,
how
I
much
don't think so
I've
either.
like my train of thought from how I was conditioned early on to where I'm at now. I'm like grossly a different person in how I feel about things. But you're right, it's because experience.
Yeah.
And I will
and we
say,
have soulmate types, I think.
yes, I think that
A
for some people,
prototype like Outkast and Andre 3000 said. You know, I have a prototype in my head.
Yes.
Great song, by the way. You know, I'm listening
but
to
I
Colin,
think some people they are meant to share their life with one person. Like that is their journey.
Well, it
That was the journey that God
if that
had
person presents itself, though.
planned.
I mean, I don't think.
What
No,
do you
no,
mean
no,
that
no, no.
person
I mean,
presents
there's
itself?
degrees and levels of how somebody fits in your life and fits in all these things. Like, you know, yes, you don't have a one quote unquote soulmate, but within the type, there are people who are a 10 in that type and people who are an 8 and a 7. You could probably make it work with 6 and up, right? Well, you're a 6 level prototype, but you know, hey, you still fit the model, so we can rock, right? But a 10 is like, I have no need to keep searching because, you know what I'm saying, within the prototype, you hit the 10.
Oh, this is interesting.
So I feel like
Okay.
it fits so well. Why am I still looking, or why are we still, you know what I'm saying? Why is there still
I like that. I can see that.
why is the window open? Why is the back door open? Because we're, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You're like, okay, at some point, you've got to be satisfied
Yeah.
with what you have. If when I say what you have, not mean like in a settled type of way, but if you have someone who meets,
If you're
The-
proud of your crop and the tree is
Okay.
giving you fruit that you like to eat and it looks good in the pictures and all that, if you're happy with your tree, why are you going to go and uproot it and plant another one?
Right.
Like, what's the reason?
So I can tell you from experience the reason for a lot of people.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, for a lot of people that I know,
Oh,
that I've studied. I mean, you know, of course, through my own self-reflection and things like that, is a lot of times we pick people who are in the image of where we are currently at in life. So for me, you know, early on, I was selecting what I would call wound mates. Wound mates, only
I see where you're
because
going.
my early journey was so steeped in hardship and trauma that I was most attracted to people that I could relate to that had some type of similar
right. Battle
hardship.
scars. Right.
Yes, those battle scars. And a lot of times we think that's my soulmate because they get me. But in the moment, hear me out. In the moment,
I'm agreeing with you.
you're like,
I'm saying no, they
this
aren't.
is my
but yes,
soulmate
right.
because, oh my gosh, they can relate to me. And they also come from, you know, this background. And they, oh, this is, and so you don't realize that you're bonding over trauma. And your trauma is what keeps attracting the wrong people, not bad people.
No.
I always say, like, I picked those people.
Right.
And they weren't bad people, but they were equally as wounded. So my need to fix, my need to want to help and rescue, what I learned came from a place of, I hate to see people suffer.
And I will say
And it
this.
was brought to my attention. Somebody asked me a very simple question one time, and it was life-changing. My business mentor and coach said to me, do you know what it feels like to suffer on a deep level? And I was weeping on the phone, and I said, yes, of course. And he said, when did you start to feel that level of suffering? You know, and I gave out an age. And he said, so why do you think that you work so hard to try to end other people's sufferings, and you don't even realize this, but you're seeking that in other people? And he said, it's because you don't want anyone to suffer the way that you did. So I was picking men who had their own level of suffering, and I was going to go end the suffering.
Well, you didn't.
That's a joke.
But you also didn't do the work to end your suffering.
Exactly.
And
because
so,
it's easier to go work on somebody else's suffering.
And so what I was going to say is, like, I think back to the initial subject of us being 40, like grown and getting into this, like, you know, after being divorced and everything else, understanding how to get into a relationship and understanding what you're looking for at this point. If you don't learn from your past and learn from your history and learn from, like, you know, people around you who make it work, that's the problem. I feel like I'm less likely to be in a negative situation at this point than I was at 24, 26, 27, 31 when I got married. It's like now I've really been taking enough notes to where I think I can probably be closer to making a good grade in this class at this point.
Right.
To where, like, I'm honest with myself about who I am and where I am, as we talked about before, but also I'm honest with myself about the people I encounter. You know, I don't judge them for their stuff, but still I'm honest about their stuff. Like, this is something that it's just not for me.
Right.
You know, like, you know, we've had discussions about women I've been on dates with where, like, you know, they fit all the little boxes that you initially check when you walk over to talk to somebody, but it's like you get into the first, second, third date, and it's like, you're great, but this other stuff is not going to be a fit.
Right.
And you have a blind spot that I see that you don't even care about.
Yeah.
I'm all about, like, how do I become the best Drew? How do I make this the best thing?
Right.
And,
Right. And the other thing that I've noticed is we just assume that everyone in their 40s or, I mean, even late 30s, you just think, oh, you know what? Everybody's out there working on their stuff.
No.
They've gone around the mountain a few times and they realize, okay, I'm not doing this correctly.
They don't.
I'm going to go work on discovery.
Right.
And I always say, too, this is like a 3-part thing, if not maybe even a 10-part thing, because you first learn and find out why you do what you do. Okay? Like, you come to the realization.
Yeah.
But that's just step 1. You know what I mean? And so
and then why you allow what you allow.
Why you allow what you allow. And then not getting stuck into, maybe I was telling you, I don't know who I was saying this to yesterday. Healing is like critical, but you're not healing for a lifetime. Like, that has to, you gotta recognize, deal with it, utilize the tools to deal with it, and then move on.
And not be afraid to move.
You can't
just live in the hospital.
You've got to have the courage to love again. You've got to have the courage to date again. You've got to have, like, it takes courage. A lot of people refuse to remarry or re-partner up or re-whatever because somebody hurt them 20 years ago. So I want to thank you for coming on. My brother, Uncle Drew, also to the family.
In the building,
You've been awesome.
Thank you.
Let's come back for part 2 and talk about business and a little bit more about relationships and how that affects business.
I would love to. This is really fun. It's my first ever podcast. This is a performance. What do we call this?
No, it's not even.
I'm a performer. I'm being.
This is like candid conversations with bro.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right.